cutting in and out on me, so I'm not sure what's going on. Oh well, I'm here now though. So yeah, basically, if you guys would watch, the videos that we put up on how to make a story map, it goes over most of it. Chris and I, and looking at the directions that Chris gave everyone, there's two different ways to get from a map that you've created to a story map. One of the ways is here, and I think Chris's directions show you how to click from here. This is the story maps from ArcGIS. This is just basically their web apps, and you can build your story map from here. My students actually found this one, which is another great thing, when you have kids telling you how to do things. My students just basically found out how to do it from here. And like I showed you earlier, you just click share, and from here, if you want people to see your map, obviously you just send them the link, but if you want to create that web app, you just click right here. And you have all these options on the side, and you can kind of mess around with these whenever you see fit or have time. But obviously we want to build a story map. And there's several different types, but for this we just chose the journal. We think it's much, one of the more user-friendly ones. And so you just click there, and you're kind of off and rolling at this point. The only problem that you kind of run into is the browser window extent. I answer this question a couple of times a week when I'm teaching this to kids. What do I click next? Well, use the scroll bar, find the part that's highlighted. I think I've made this national park story map about 17 times now. And so I'm just going to put in a 12 just to make it different. And from here you're going right into the story map. You can have this panel float in, very stationary person, so I like the side panel being right there. And just put in your title. Just like I said, I'm not going to go through all of the steps. I just kind of want to get you here. And then as Jolie said, this is your main stage. This is your side panel over here. It's the main stage where you put your map. It's the side panel where you put your text, your videos, primary source pictures, what have you. I impart to my students, let's keep this main stage when we're using a map. Let's use the map. Let's keep the map as clean as possible. Just have the layers that you want that are pertinent, to that particular slide. Put all the text and information over here. To each his own. If you find a different way to do it, by all means, go ahead and do it. I just find that to be the least bulky look to me anyway. Just your map that you launch the story map from, it defaults right there, like I said. And so I'll just real quick put that up. And so there's that story map that you had seen. And I want to show you. So the problem you get here, and maybe Chris or Jolie can jump in if they know a workaround on this, but if you choose this base map, and this is the topographic base map, you're pretty much stuck with that. And so a quick workaround, I'm just going to save all this and just kind of make a quick slide and jump down to the next slide to show you a workaround. So when you come up with the next slide, and let's say I want to use that map again, but I don't want to use this topographic map that I have over here.
Hey, Andy.
Yes.
I hate to burst your bubble here. You're on a roll. Can you go back to that home slide and explain when you typed in National Park what you were doing there? Like you've covered the main stage, and then just quickly explain what the side stage is, and then
okay,
if you wouldn't mind jumping through, that'd be awesome. Thanks.
I will do that, absolutely. All right, so we're back on to our side page, and it's over here where you want to put all of your information. So Chris, just jump in and whatever you want me to explain. If I'm not doing it, that's fine.
Actually, Andy, if you'll just show them how the main stage and the side panel interact together, just so that folks who are new to this understand. We keep all three of us are using main stage like it's our vocabulary, but just give just a quick narrative of the main stage and the side panel, and then I think we'll be good to move on.
Okay, so to do that, I'm just going to jump over to the map I made earlier. This is right here where my mouse is moving around as fast as I can move it. That's your main stage. That's the larger section. That's where my eyes are immediately drawn, and as you move through that, you get your map tends to go over here, or pictures. You can't really put text over on this side. Over here on the side panel, this is where you would embed video. This is where you basically tell the story of what is going on the map. This is where, over here is where you would interpret what the map might be showing. And so on a very generic story map that I have here, all I'm saying over here is, these are the parks that are included on my side. If you had a story map dealing with, census tract, you would maybe explain what, census data you're using over here. Is that good, Chris?
Sounds great. You can move on.
Okay.
I just want to make sure people knew what side panel is and main stage is. Thanks.
Yeah, once we get that kind of, once you become familiar with, I guess, the nomenclature of it all, you kind of just start rolling through it. And so, like I said, I just set up a generic main stage. Type in, this is where you would explain what's going on this map. And all of that is referenced in the Module 4 video clips that are embedded, obviously, in Module 4. I'm going to add a quick section. And remember, I said I don't want to use this map all the time. This has a topographic base, or maybe I want to use an imagery for a particular thing. I personally don't use imagery very often. I let my students in the classroom mess with it for like the first 2 days, and then after that we don't really use it. I don't particularly like them using it on story maps, especially story maps of a historical perspective, because if they use imagery, and they're making a story map about the Civil War, that shopping mall wasn't there. And so I try to have them either use on your base maps like light gray canvas or topographic. Topographic has its limitations because there's cities and townships that may not have been there at the time, but you could also use some of those Rumsey maps that Chris showed us in the last webinar. But so I like, I want to use a map, but I don't want to use that topographic, and so I just roll through, and what I did was I saved an extra copy of that map that I made, and I saved it as, I'm on the wrong, there we go. I saved it as an imagery map, and so once I put that map in, you can see now that it comes up as imagery. It's the same map, it's just the base map is different. It's the same content, same points, same base, same layers, data sets. It's just a different, it's a different base map, and so that might be useful. And remember, these maps over here are searchable. They're malleable. You can move them, and when you go back to it, it will restore to whatever default extent you set. One more thing for me tonight. This is kind of a newer feature. We'll use it here. It's not going to be that exciting because there's only 2 slides. But if you click on share, once you've made your story map, so let's say you have it up, you made a story map as some type of bell ringer. When kids are walking in, you want them to see, maybe identify some of the items that, maybe some of the satellite images that we used. If you click on share, and hang on, it was on here last week. Click on view story, then click on share. Copy that link, and as you copy it, put autoplay mode on. So copy that link, and you just paste that link into a new tab. It will let you set time constraints so it plays through automatically. We'll drop that down pretty slow so you can see it. And so it'll just kind of cycle back through it, back and forth. But basically, that's what I have for now. Like Chris said, if anybody out there has any more questions, refer to those videos, refer to the nice cheat sheet that Chris made, or send us an email.
Thank you, Andy D. Julie, do you have anything to add? Any tips or tricks before we move on to the next piece?
I think Andy covered that pretty well. I don't have anything additional to add at this point. in terms of, kind of getting your feet wet with the story map. I think that was covered quite well.
Okay. I would agree.
If I can just jump in, Chris, and add one more thing.
All you want, Andy. Go ahead.
All right. The first time I think I set out to make a story map for classroom use, I was going to be out for a couple of days, so I thought I'd have the kids go through this great story map. It was 30-some slides, maybe even been 40. It took forever. It was really the first time I was getting familiar with using it. The way we're having you guys do it with a 7-slide story map, that's great to get your feet wet. Don't try to bite off more than you can chew at this point. Just get familiar with a few slides, get the slides looking good, and move on from there. Once you get a couple story maps under your belt, you can kind of, try to run the marathon of making a 40, 50-slide, story map.
That's a mighty fine story you had your kids create, Andy.
Yeah, it was like Crime and Punishment. It just never ended.
Yeah. So, folks, what we're going to do is